Hello, and welcome back to Black Mental Health Matters. On today's show, I'm going to be speaking with Toy Burton. She is the founder and executive director of DeeDee's which is an organization dedicated towards suicide prevention and family support. I'm Dr. Kerryann Williams. I'm a psychiatrist, and this is my show, so enjoy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Black Mental Health Matters. I'm Dr. Kerryann Williams. I'm a psychiatrist here in Massachusetts, and this is a talk show that covers everything related to mental wellness in the Black community. So if you'd like to participate throughout the show, you can give us a call at 617-238-7111. We're also streaming live on Facebook on the page heat981fm.com. So you can go to Facebook and follow us live there, drop a comment. And today on the show, I have a special guest with me. Her name is Toy Burton. You may or may not know her, but you may know some of the events that she has planned. Toy Burton is the founder and executive director of DeeDee's Suicide Prevention and Family Support. DeeDee's is named after her sister, Danita Shane Morris, DeeDee, who died by suicide when she was 23 years old in 1986. And Toy started DeeDee's in 2017 after noticing the lack of racial equity and social justice regarding mental health education and suicide prevention in communities of color. So DeeDee's creates a space and events that elevate the conversation about mental health education and suicide prevention in communities of color. Now, Toy Burton is also the founder and executive director of the Roxbury Unity Parade. Toy started the Roxbury Unity Parade in 2018 after seeing other Boston neighborhoods have parades and celebrations for their communities. And so the Roxbury Unity Parade is a day of unity and celebration. It recognizes people, organizations, and businesses that uplift Roxbury every day. Toy is an amazing woman. She's been recognized by the Boston City Council for organizing the inaugural Roxbury Unity Parade, and she's also been awarded the Legacy in Time Award by Village in Progress for her work in the community. She's been recognized by the Massachusetts House of Representatives for elevating the conversation around mental health and suicide through her organization, DeeDee's And last year in November, she was awarded the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute's Inform, Influence, and Impact Award. So I'm so excited to have her on the show today. Welcome to the show, Toy Burton.
Thank you so much for having me, Kerryann. I appreciate you.
And so tell us a little bit about yourself. And I know I said a little bit in the introduction, but go ahead and talk about the story of your organization, DeeDee's
So like you mentioned, my sister died in 86. And I had my own mental health challenges and drug addiction and alcohol abuse. But it wasn't until 2017 when a friend of mine, I was posting on social media, if my sister had lived, it would have been her birthday. And a friend of mine that I used to work with inboxed me because her brother had just recently died by suicide and was asking me questions like, how do you get through it? When will the pain end? Things like that. So I decided to research to see what was out there. And being on these websites, I kind of got angry because I didn't see anybody who looked like me. And where their events were happening, I was like, this isn't for somebody who lives in Roxbury or Dorchester or Mattapan. Like, who's going to travel out to Newton or Wellesley or Waltham, wherever these events were happening? And I was like, I'm going to create an organization and I'm going to make sure that these resources are accessible to people who live in Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, to me, communities of color.
Wow. So your response to the inequity was to kind of be a part of the change, to do something about it.
Yes. I like to say I don't ask for a seat at the table. I just build my own table.
That's right. And so now you also started this parade for Roxbury as well. So tell us a little bit more about that, that decision.
Same thing. I was like, I just get angry a lot. So I was volunteering at the Dorchester Day Parade. So the first time I had the idea of the parade, right? So I was going to school downtown, and I'm noticing all these tourists. And I'm like, how come these people aren't coming into Roxbury? And I was like, Roxbury needs something for people to come into Roxbury. So, of course, Boston, we're all about parades. The Celtics was winning, Patriots, like we always have parades, right? And so I didn't think about it again. A few years later, I'm at Dorchester Day Parade, and I was like, wait a minute, Dorchester has a parade. Rosendale has a parade. Wait, how come Roxbury doesn't have a parade? And then the summer of 2017, there was a lot of violence going on that summer. A lot of shootings and stuff was going on. And I was like, I felt like my community was hurting. And I was like, we need something to lift us up, to, just to bring our pride back and our sense of, like we got this, we're going to be okay. And so then that's when I act on doing a parade.
So it was around this, was it around the same time that you started DeeDee's Cry as well? Like you kind of did both things.
Exactly.
Okay. Wow. And so when you first decided to do this, what, I guess what maybe were some of the challenges that you faced, but then also, what are some of the ways that people helped you to achieve the vision of both the parade and your organization?
So the challenges was that I wasn't a community organizer.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've never done a parade. I wasn't in the mental health field. I'm a preschool teacher. So even just explaining that, even to my family, like, hey, I want to, start this organization. I'm going to name it after DeeDee's Cry. They're like, hey, but you're not a doctor. Like, how can you do that? You don't know mental health. And it wasn't about knowing mental health. It was about bringing the people who do know about mental health to the Black community. And that's still my mission. But, and with the parade, I didn't know anything about the parade. So I Googled it, got in touch with Tom Donahue at the Rosendale Parade. And he was very helpful, emailing me things like, these are the permits you're going to need. This is what you need to do and who you need to contact. And that's what I did. I contacted the city and I was like, hey, I want to do a parade for Roxbury. And it was like, okay. And it was, the challenge was just getting people on board with that. So it was probably like 5 or 6 of us, and we made it happen. First year was great, but there's like just 3 core members, and then the rest are like volunteers and stuff. But yeah.
So then I noticed that, when I had asked you about some of the kind of background information that, so businesses can get involved as well, like they can help to sponsor or also promote their business. But then other, folks get involved in the parade as well. Like who gets involved in the parade? Who's a part of it?
So of course politicians. So the first parade, that's what it looked like. But no, politicians are great supporters for the parade because like I said, it is publicity. Being in a parade is publicity. So any business, any fraternity, sorority, and it's just to show a love of community. So if you are in the Roxbury parade, that's saying something about what you think about Roxbury, because some people don't give to the parade, or they're not in the parade, but you'll see them at Dorchester's parade or, Rosendale parade or the Puerto Rican parade and be like, hey, what about Roxbury? So participating in the parade does kind of reflect your views on the neighborhood, right?
And I can see how it would just uplift the neighborhood, especially at a time where, sometimes they get a lot of bad press. The news is only going to show the bad and not the good. So it gives one way to have some positive media attention as well.
Yes, exactly. So our parade, we give awards at the parade. And when I first told somebody that, they was like, Toy, you're a parade. Why are you giving out awards? And I was like, no, because I need to recognize those who uplift Roxbury every day,
Yeah.
right? It's not done, just for a parade sense, but I'm like, these people been doing it. So we do a Lifetime Achievement Award. Past recipients was Sarah Ann Shaw, Melvin B. Miller of the Bay State Banner, Elfrida Harris, Mel King, Tina Cherry was last year. We have the Pillar of the Community Award. Um, who was that? Monica Cannon Grant, um, Gary, Gary, what's his name? Barry Gaithers of the Big Hidden Museum. Um, the Business of the Community Award, that Haley House was the first year. Last year was Food for the Soul. So like I said, we like to recognize businesses, people, organizations who are just out there doing the work.
Wow, wow. I think it's so important because you're right. People can go kind of unrecognized and they're working really hard and they're contributing to their community and uplifting it. And it just gives a platform for people to celebrate that. And so around what time of year does the parade normally happen? I know there's, the pandemic kind of affected pretty much most things last year, but what time of year does a parade usually happen?
No, well, because of the pandemic last year, we were a caravan. I
Okay.
felt it very important that we didn't cancel. We was the only parade in Boston that did not cancel.
Oh, wow.
Because since the COVID-19 was hitting the Black community, you know, harder than other communities, I felt it was still important that we go on. So we were a caravan that everybody stayed in their cars. Can't get no more socially distanced than that and stuff. So if need be, if we need to do that again this year, I know the numbers are going up.
Yeah.
We would do that, but we are also planning on in person. Because even so, like this will only be our fourth year, so we don't have the crowd like Dorchester or the other parades. Like there's not people lined up on the street because a lot of people don't know about us yet.
Mhm, mhm.
So hopefully we'll get to that point that people are lined up. We go from Malcolm X Boulevard to Malcolm X Park. And yeah, so we're the only parade that recognizes and uplifts the contributions of African Americans in Boston.
Wow.
Yeah,
And I like that you found a way to make it happen last year. That's
yeah,
really impressive because I think a lot of things, kind of got canceled or shut down, and you found a way to still make it happen, to still kind of honor people and bring this back into the community, to not let the coronavirus kind of like stop you, but to find a way to be socially distant and, still responsible, but still kind of do what you needed to do.
yes. So the first year, the city asked me to cancel because of the weather was so bad. It was like going to pour down rain and strong winds. And I was like, no, like I've been promoting this for a year. Like I'm not going to cancel. I thought like canceling just will kind of just undercut the purpose of it. Like how can we promote how resilient Roxbury is and then gonna cancel because of rain? So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
did not. Mayor Marty Walsh came out, Ayanna Presley, like everybody came out. And by the time it was pouring really bad that morning when I was setting up, but by the time we stepped off, the sun was out and it was hot. And we went to Malcolm X Field. And once we get to the field, there's live music and free cotton candy and ice cream for the kids, and we had the gaming truck and the empowerment fair. So I do an empowerment fair where people can register to have tables, and I
Mhm.
have them give out information. I don't really do vendors because I don't want to take money from the community that day, but I would
Okay.
rather give them information that will better their lives.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Totally
do
makes sense. Wow. So that's amazing. So that happens in which month usually?
July, the third weekend in July. So this year we're calling it the Roxbury Unity Parade Weekend
Okay.
because I'm like, if people are going to come in from out of town, we need to give them a whole weekend of doing things, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, no better time to start than the present. So we need to promote Roxbury Nubian Square, the tourist destination that it is.
Yeah.
Even and I've been saying this since I started. So like I said, I went to school downtown and would have to get on the SL5 to come back into Nubian Square. And I'm like, how come there's not a sign letting tourists know that all they got to do is get on one bus to be in historic Roxbury?
Yeah.
There's signs on 93 talking about Franklin Park.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and me knowing where Franklin Park is located, I'm like, we're not near Franklin Park, but it's still letting people know, right?
Yeah.
So let people know that one bus ride goes from downtown into Nubian Square.
Yeah.
Like, we should be able to get that tourism dollars just like downtown.
There's a lot of history in Roxbury, and I think I agree with you that there, people need to know how to get there and what's there, and I like the idea of making it a weekend because I know, usually in the summers I will go to like fairs and different things. And there's so many times where people say, well, if it's on Saturday, well, maybe I'm working that day, but I could come if it's on a Sunday. And, if you have it more than one day, then people can still participate, even if maybe they have to work one day of the weekend or things like that. So I think it makes it accessible to people.
Yes, because every July, not every July, but I've been down to New Orleans for the Essence Music Festival, right? Everybody travels from all over to be in New Orleans that weekend, right?
Yeah.
Because there's things to do all weekend long, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do. We need to have just things happening all weekend long to bring that tourism into our neighborhoods.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. And I like the idea of also just rebalancing the I guess the viewpoint of what Roxbury is. Because again, if you just watch the news, they're just going to report the most dramatic things of the day, which are, not necessarily the things that we need to celebrate about it. So I really salute you for the work that you're doing with that, and I hope that I'll be able to join one of these times, whether it's this year or in the future, to be able to kind of get down there and celebrate and learn more about Roxbury. So I wanted to kind of shift a little bit to talking about your story and about DeeDee's Cry. And for listeners that are just joining, you're listening to Black Mental Health Matters. I'm Dr. Carryann Williams. I'm a psychiatrist, and today I have Toy Burton, who is the founder and executive director of DeeDee's Cry, and she's going to talk a little bit more about her story and what it's like to share her story with others. And if you want to call in, the phone number here is 617-238-7111. We're also streaming live on Facebook on the Facebook page heat981fm.com. So if you just want to see us on Facebook, you can join the stream, or if you want to drop a comment. And thank you for those that are already following along on Facebook. Facebook user Shama says, wow, natural gift with passion, Toy. Hello. Sandra says hello. Toya says hello. Teresa says hello. So thank you guys for joining us on Facebook. So tell us a little bit about what it has been like for you to like share your story with other people, and tell us a little bit more about like what you went through and how that kind of led up to even just that anger that you had that led to the organization.
So even when I started it, like I said, I wanted to make sure that the resources were accessible. And I was like, I want to reach people who may not go to a mental health fair, but I want to reach people who would bring their kids to an Easter egg hunt. So DeeDee's Cry's first event was DeeDee's Cry Heart for Suicide Awareness and Easter Egg Hunt. Because I was like, what made me happy as a child? And I don't know who used to put it on, but every year, every Easter, we would go to Franklin Park for this big giant Easter egg hunt. So I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I invited, I went to like all these health clinics, telling them like, come bring it, have a table, have your pamphlets, have the information about the services you offer. At the time, the only one who showed up was the Transformation Center and VIP, Village in Progress, Marcus Lewis, right? And DeeDee's Cry had a table, so we was giving out information there. But my thinking about, and Ayanna Presley was there, she was city councilor at the time. Out of all the politicians that I invited, she was the only one to show up. And
she showed up.
Yeah, she was like, Toy, I don't get the connection between suicide and the Easter egg hunt. But she was like, but I'll be there. And she was there. And like I said, it was just a fun day. Families there. and then they could go to the table and get the resources and the information, no judgment. They don't have to go into a facility. Like, I just feel like we need to start taking away the barriers,
Yeah.
and just making it accessible for people. Because some people may not even know that they need these services until they see the services.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wait, you're giving away $2 bags of food, on Saturdays. Oh, okay, I'll come to that, you know?
Yeah.
So,
No, I like that idea of, um, just kind of having events that uplift. For one, they just uplift the community, but then they also provide information that people need. And as you mentioned, sometimes you don't know what's out there. You don't know what you need until you actually see the pamphlet or you meet the person and they say, hey, here's what's available. And you think, oh, this would actually be really useful. This would be something that I'd be interested in.
exactly. Because a lot of people just aren't aware.
Yeah.
You could be giving food away in Dudley, but you live in Grove Hall, and it might not get to you. But if you have a community event, people are more than likely to come to a community event and then get the resource. Oh, well, Demick Street is offering this, Whittier Health Center is offers this, Mattapan Health Center offers this, Common Square. So that's the thought of that. But nobody came.
But what are some of the I guess I'm interested to know what are the variety of different kinds of events. So you've had the parade, you have the Easter egg hunt was the first one. What are some of the other kinds of events that you've had where, maybe it's a combination of information, but also, entertainment and other things?
So even at the parade, at the end of the parade, there's definitely entertainment. Like I said, my childhood, I remember Summer Thing and live music. So we definitely have live music at the end. So even with the city, and they was like, no, after the parade, you have to disperse. And I'm like, we don't work like that. No, we need to party at the end. No, we're like,
That
we
might
don't.
happen in other communities, but we like to socialize and hang out.
Exactly, exactly. But while I was doing the parade, DeeDee's Cry kind of had to take a back seat. Um, so I did do the second year of the Easter egg hunt. We was in the bowling building because it was raining that day, and shout out to them for supporting us. But once the parade of 2019 was over, I was like, you know what, I need to get back to DeeDee's Cry. And at that time, there there was a lot of things on TV, um, driving while black, barbecuing while black, um, that was going on. And I was like, I'm going to do a mental health while black. And I was like, I'm going to have people just share their stories. Because I'm like, every time I share my stories, like just people's reaction, like, oh, wait, you were on crack? Like, it's like when you hear somebody else's story, you you realize that you're not alone, you're not the only one going through it, and it kind of empowers you and gives you strength and gives you hope. So I was like, okay, so I'm gonna have this piano, and I'm gonna just have them share their stories. So and we had it at the bowling building because I was like, it has to be in Roxbury and near public transportation, and it has to be accessible, and it was free because that's another barrier. All DeeDee's Cry events are free. Um, so on the flyer, I was like, it was December 19th. It was the Friday before Christmas. And I was like, dinner will be served. Because I'm like, Toy, you want people to come out at 6 o'clock. You
Gotta
need to
have
feed them,
food.
right?
Yeah.
So I did the event page, and even just getting the bowling building, I'm like, yeah, just give me a room that can hold less than 20 people. Once once like 30 people registered, and then 50 people registered, and then 70 people registered, I was like, oh, I'm like, I don't have money to feed 70 people. And a friend of mine was like, why didn't you put a cap on it? He was like if you could have only fed 10, why didn't you just put 10? And I was like, I didn't think about that, but I don't want to turn people away. Like whoever comes, I want them to come. And it went like over 150 people had registered. And so I started to panic. I put it on Facebook. I'm like, I need help. I'm like, I'm having an event and these people need, I need to have food. And the community was awesome. Restaurants, they donated, they catered the food for free. The Boys and Girls Club of Roxbury, they sent over some Irvine Goldson, may she rest in peace. She was like, sis, she was the first one, sis, what do you need? You know, and so the food was awesome. They was like, what do you want? I was like, well, I said fried chicken, mac and cheese, and collard greens. It is the Friday before Christmas. And, my family helped out, the Franklins, they cooked, and it was an awesome event. And people shared in the audience. I don't even want to call them audience. The people that were there, they received it and they stood up and they shared their stories and said, how this was so needed and stuff. And then we did another one February 1st at Grove Hall because, like I said, just because it was in Nubian Square doesn't mean that people in Grove Hall heard about it or even can get there. So we had it in Grove Hall and awesome, a full room Saturday afternoon, lots of people. And then I was planning to have it in Mattapan. And then that's when COVID happened and stuff. And then a friend of mine, he reached out, was like, Toy, I have this digital space. Like, you don't need to cancel. I can help you go virtual. And so ever since then, thank you to James Hills, we've been virtual.
Wow. And I feel like it makes a difference when it's not just for the community, but it's from the community. I think it's one thing if, I'm from some other location and I'm coming into Roxbury to now offer this to the people. And it's a whole nother thing where it's coming from the same community and is for that community and beyond. So it kind of feels like it's a community effort. Like people are contributing to it. They're part of it. It's not just for them, but it's by them as well. I feel like that's powerful.
Yes, yes. Because we are a different breed. People are the same. We may go through the same challenges, but we do kind of receive things differently or things like you said, by us, for us,
Yeah. And it connects them with people that are closer. So for example, if I have an event and it just has people from all over, I might connect with someone and that's great. But if I'm connecting with a neighbor that I didn't meet before and they actually don't live that far from me, that's a connection that I might be able to maintain because they're actually closer to me geographically as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, again, for those of you guys that are just joining, I'm Dr. Carryann Williams. This is Black Mental Health Matters, and I'm speaking with Toy Burton from DeeDee's Cry. And we're talking about the organization that she has that helps to connect people to the resources that they need, through events and other things that we'll kind of get to as well. So you mentioned that as you share your story, that people are sometimes surprised about some of the things that you've gone through personally. Like they'll say, "What? You used crack? What?" So tell us a little bit more about that part of your story and how you got through that.
So I started drinking when I was 19. I was in college briefly. And we were doing a trip to Montreal, and I'm on the bus and we're going to Canada, and somebody was like, hey, Toy, try this. And I don't know why I did, but it was Bacardi, and I loved it. After that, I was just drinking, not all the time, like on the weekend, my friends would come over, we would drink in my room, and at the time, gotta go back, because I was a teen mom. I had my first daughter when I was 15 and my second daughter when I was 16. So just to bring context to this story. So, 19, I'm a teen mom. And then my sister died a few months after I just started drinking. So it kind of escalated then. And I just like the numbness of it. I like the way it just took the pain away. And then by the time I was 22, somebody was like, "Hey, Toy, try this," you know, and I was like, "Oh, what is it?" It's crack. And it didn't take off the way alcohol took off, but eventually I started indulging in it more like years later. Um, by the time I was 25, I had my own suicide attempt. And when that happened, I was in my apartment by myself, and I felt like my kids would be better without me, my family would be better without me. I didn't want to be here anymore. And I had just came from like smoking crack and drinking, so I was really feeling down. And I went into the bathroom and just, just made me like bleach, Comet, everything that was under the sink, and I drank it. And then once I started feeling the effects, I was like, oh, wait. And I was able to like fall out of my apartment to make it to my neighbor's apartment to tell them what I did. And they called the ambulance and got me to the hospital and got my stomach pumped. So it wasn't until years, probably mental health while black, that I'm sharing my story that it dawned on me that I didn't want to die. I just wanted the pain to stop, but I didn't know how to make the pain stop.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought I wanted until it was happening. And then I was like, oh, wait, I don't want to do that. But, I went to the hospital. They sent me home, was back in the same cycle, still drinking and drugging. And it wasn't until 1998 that I spoke to God. And I hadn't spoken to him when my sister died. Like, I didn't want it to be mad at her, so I was mad at God. I'm like, why'd you do this? Why'd you take her away from me, and this and that? And I went all these years without prayer or without speaking to him, and that worked for me. So even in, I want to say in 91, um I was tired in 91 and wanted to get clean. And I was living on the North Shore. And I just did what people did to get clean. So I was like, I need to go home. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Went back to Boston, checked myself. Then it was Mattapan Detox on River Street. Checked myself in there, went through Women's Hope, went through this program, got out, went to NA, went to AA. I was clean for like 4 years, got complacent, fell off, because I was like, I can have a drink, thinking like, why am I? It's New Year's Eve. A friend of mine's like, it's New Year's Eve, have a drink. And I'm like, I don't drink. Oh, but it's New Year's Eve. You could just have one drink. And I'm like, you know what? I can't. Crack is my problem. Drink is not my problem. Took a drink, was fine. And then the following week, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I can have a drink. Took a drink and was back out there again. End up killing the bottle, killing the second bottle. Next thing you know, I was looking for crack all over again. And so was out there for 2 more years. And then in 98, I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to hurt anymore. I became, I was a cutter. I was causing self-harm. Because to me, the physical pain took my mind off the emotional pain. And that was in 98. It's almost 23 years later, and I have not had a drink or a drug since.
For 23 years.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep. This August, 23 years.
Wow. That's
Yep.
amazing. So when you think about what helped you, because the first time you kind of did a lot of the kind of traditional things, I would say, the detox and the NA and the AA, and that helped for 4 years, or so, and then you're in a situation where someone says, oh well, it's just a drink, and so there's kind of this sense of, okay, it's not going to be as much as I think it is, but then as you mentioned, it kind of led to 2 more years. That final time, what do you think helped it to be the final time for you? I mean, at least in your story, because I know everybody is different,
Yes. So the way I explain it is that when I wake up, I just ask God to keep it away. And once I make it through that day, I say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Because that first day, I wasn't saying, God, I need to be clean for 23 years. I just needed that day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I needed that next day. So that's what I do. I just turn it into a day.
Day by day.
Yes.
And that, I think about in, in Christianity, we always kind of say, give us this day our daily bread. Um, and it's thought to kind of mean that really, God gives us the grace that we need for the day. And then you wake up in the morning, you say, I just needed the grace for today. And now you have the grace for today. And the next morning, the same thing. And sometimes when we are thinking too far ahead in the future, it can cause so much worry and sadness because we don't know what the future holds. But it completely makes sense to just wake up and just take it one day. Give us this day our daily bread.
Oh, another story. Like when I was using, um, everyone around me used to always get arrested for whatever reason. The police would say, "Toy, go home," and I would be like, why they didn't frisk me? Like I got crack in my pocket. Like they'll put handcuffs on everyone, and I mean this happened all the time, all the time. I would go out with somebody, and we'll buy the package, and we'll step on the street, and the cops would frisk her, handcuff her, and tell me to go.
Mm.
And I always wondered, like, how come they didn't arrest me? Always. And then once I became a preschool teacher and had to go for my annual Corey, and I was like, see, God knew then that I was going to be a preschool teacher. And
Yeah.
he made sure that I did not have a Corey, that I could do this. Yeah.
So he sees your future. He's taking
Yeah.
care of your future. You just need to worry about today. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's amazing. Facebook user Kimberly says, God can do all things. Thank you for that comment on Facebook. Again, for those of you listening, we're streaming live on Facebook on heat981fm.com. So if you want to follow along there, drop a comment, you're welcome to do so. You can also call in at 617-238-7111. So you now have like a support group for people who have, it's a suicide survivor support group. So tell us a little bit about that.
So the support group actually is for anyone.
Okay.
So that was the goal at first, but I'm like, everyone needs healing. So, and that's the name of it. Healing begins with me reimagining my dopeness. We meet every Thursday virtually at 6 p.m. and then we meet in person on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. And the purpose of this group is to, of course, bring them resources. So we have special guests that come in virtually. Like last week, it was Massachusetts Department of Mental Health. Yep, someone from there. And they shared the resources that they have. And I know next week is, well, we're off this week because of vacation. The week after, Laverne Gordon from Love Life Foundation and her organization talks about domestic violence. Because like I said, you never know what services you need until you hear about the service. Like, hey, that's out there. So yeah, so it's about bringing the resources into the group and letting the people learn about more. And Saturday is about, of course, getting some vitamin D, getting air, building relationships and community. Because when you feel like you're supported by a community, you are less likely to think about suicide. Right?
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Being connected
Yes.
versus being isolated.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I imagine that people may ask you questions from time to time. People that have lost a loved one to suicide, and they may ask you questions about how, what your philosophy is, or how you got through it, or do you find yourself in a position when you're giving people advice? What are some of the most common questions that people ask you about losing someone that they love to suicide?
Well, I wouldn't say it's common, but one thing that sticks out for me is when I share about my attempt or whatever, or when people hear about my attempt, and they're like, oh, I never knew there was somebody who looked like me who attempted to, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And same thing, this other woman, I was telling her about the event, and she shared about her attempt, and she was like, I've never told anyone this before. Like, my family don't even know about this. And she's like, I don't even know why I just told you about this. And I was like, because people, when they hear that somebody else did it too, they feel less alone and they want to share their experience too. And that's what we need to do. We need to let people know it's okay to talk about it. Like, no one's going to know you're hurting or what you're going through unless you say something. You cannot receive help unless people know that you need help. So,
Yeah, I think about how, again, in terms of the percentages, most mental health providers are not Black. We're still very much underrepresented compared to our population numbers, for the number of mental health providers that are Black. And so when people often have these problems, they're being seen by someone who doesn't look like them. And so there's often this kind of feeling of, can you even relate to me? Can I even speak to you about this? Would you understand me? And so I imagine that when someone hears your story and they think, oh, this is somebody who is like me, they look like me, they're more likely to understand, where I'm coming from, and they have gone through something like this. Maybe I'm not the only one. It does reduce that feeling of isolation, and it does create a space where someone can share and ask questions and talk about things. So I appreciate you having these kinds of groups where people can have a space where they have something in common with other people and feel more able to share, their experiences with one another.
yes. So
Yeah.
I always tell people, like, I'm not a clinician, um, I'm not a specialist, but I am someone that you can talk to. I can listen.
Mhm.
So I have people that just reach out to me just to listen. Yeah.
And your support group is not a therapy group, all right? It's
Yes.
not
It
a
is.
therapy group. It's a peer support group, which is
Yes.
very different. And so, I guess maybe you can just explain very quickly. What is a peer support group? I mean, are people just kind of talking with one another? Is there a facilitator?
So yeah. So basically, I facilitate the group, but peer support is just a support group led by those with lived experience, opposed to a support group who may be facilitated by someone who is in the field or a clinician. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it makes a huge difference, particularly in our community where it's like, often I find people will ask the question, well, what makes you qualified to kind of talk to me about this, that, and the other? And I think if you're a person with lived experience, you kind of have that, I guess, that credibility, really,
Yes.
that someone says, oh, okay. You get it. Like, even though you may not 100% understand my situation, you can get it because you've had some kind of situation that parallels, you know mine, as you mentioned, that it may not necessarily be suicide strictly, but it might be just other ways that people need to heal.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. So I always like refer to it like the child psychologist who doesn't have any children. Like, you really don't want to hear from that person. Like, they may have been top in their class, but until you deal with what I'm dealing with, till you have dealt with what I'm dealing with, like you said, it just gives you credibility. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like sometimes a couple that says they don't want to go to a couples therapist that doesn't have a successful relationship. What
Exactly.
qualifies you to help me with my relationship if you can't keep a relationship together? So it's kind of, people have those kinds of thoughts, and of course, in reality, sometimes people can still be helpful to one another. But this is kind of the philosophy of the peer support group, is that now you're, with other people that you can at least get that listening ear, of someone who is more likely to know what you're going through.
So funny. You
Um,
made me think of the Facebook person, Derek Jackson. It's like he tells people uh tells people like how they deal with their relationship, and then it came out that he was cheating on his wife. It's like, oh, like, you say don't do that, but yet you're doing it. Yeah.
so it's like we've got to be careful, of of what we do and what we're telling other people to do. And I said, like, whereas, sometimes people that are specialists can advise on things that they haven't themselves experienced, it does make a difference when you are in the presence of someone that has had the experience, or maybe you need both, the peer support group and the specialist, and that they're not mutually exclusive. So it may be helpful to have the specialist that has, whatever all the training and whatnot, and they're qualified, but then also have the peer support group, and where you can kind of be present and feel understood. Yeah.
Exactly. Because
Yeah.
I do not want somebody, who's had an operation to be operating on me. I want somebody who went to school and got that training for the operation.
Exactly. Well, that would be really funny. Someone said, "Hey, I can do this operation because I had one." It's like that old commercial. I'm not a doctor, but I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night. It's like, wait a second.
Exactly. But
So
I
so
played with on TV.
so right. So the person doing the operation has the training, and then after, when you're recovering, you may want to be in a group with other people who have also recovered from that kind of surgery, and then you kind of all talk about it together. And I imagine then that there's also just things like common emotions that people might feel that they wonder, is it common to feel this way? So, for example, is it common to feel this tired all the time? Or is it common to, for someone who's lost someone, is it common for them to feel guilt? Feeling like maybe, oh, there's something I could have done to help this person or that person. And kind of coming to terms with, well, there's not necessarily anything you could have done. Does that kind of thing come up too?
Yes, definitely. Even with me, like I said, I was very angry. Um, and I had to learn, and it took me years to learn that, at first I'm always like, why would she have done this? Why would she do this to me? Why would she leave me? What could I have done differently? There's definitely guilt that comes along with when you have a loved one that dies by suicide. But then I had to come to terms, like, she didn't do it to me, she did it for her. And that was her only, at that time, her only option. So who knows, she could have changed her mind like I did, but just couldn't get out of, what she did to herself. Yeah.
Yeah. And I the way that you phrased it, I think, was very helpful when you said it is not necessarily something that she did to you, it's something she did for her. And I think back to what you mentioned too about your attempt, and that it wasn't about dying, it was about stopping the pain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because so many families, like, how could they do this to the family? And it's nothing that they're doing to you, it's something that they're doing for them.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
And as you mentioned, that sometimes people have a situation where they can kind of reverse it, and they can say, I changed my mind. Let's stop this. And then there's other times where it's just not possible. And so it sounds like in your case, you were able to survive, and you're working to help other people, and that you've been through things, and God has continued to work through you to help other people. Um, yeah, I guess. Are there ways that our listeners can get involved with your organization if they feel like they want to, either be a part of one of your events, or sponsor, or even just maybe they have skills in mental health and they want to help facilitate something? How can they, get in contact with you, and what are ways that they can get involved?
Okay, well, to be a sponsor, or even just to make a donation, even $5, because like I said, our events are free, but of course things do need to get paid. So if you would like to make a donation, please go on our website, DeeDee'sCry.com, DeeDeesCry.com. There's a donation button. Same with the Roxbury Unity Parade. The website for the Roxbury Unity Parade is roxburyunity18.weebly.com. There's a donation button there. You can always write a check. Our fiscal sponsor is the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute. Make the check out to the Peace Institute, but put Roxbury Unity Parade or DeeDee's Cry somewhere on the memo line or on the check so they know it's for us. And you can mail it to DeeDee's Cry, 2 John Elliott Square, Roxbury, Mass. 02119, or the Roxbury Unity Parade, same address, 2 John Elliott Square, Roxbury, Mass. 02119. You could go on Facebook, like the Facebook page, share the Facebook page, could follow DeeDee's Cry and the Roxbury Unity Parade on Instagram. What else? Oh, definitely looking for somebody, a volunteer that is a grant writer, because I am not good at this, but definitely could use volunteers, whatever your skills may be, if you would like to volunteer. Definitely it'll be virtually. But yes, definitely reach out. Oh, my email is deedeescry@yahoo.com, DeeDeeScry@yahoo.com. The Roxbury Unity Parade is roxburyunityparade@gmail.com.
So folks, if you want to reach out, if you have questions, if you want to get involved, definitely reach out to the Toy by email. You have a YouTube page, you have a Facebook page, Instagram, website. Drop a donation on the website, and I think that it's just an amazing work. Amazing work. I think rightfully, you've been recognized, by folks, and I, look forward to the things that you have coming up for the future. Anything that we should know about that's coming up for the future. So you have the parade this year coming up.
Yes.
Anything else?
Next Sunday we have a caravan for Sarah Ann Shaw. So for those of you who don't know, Sarah Ann Shaw was the first Black reporter back in 1969 on WBZ, and she's been like a force in the community ever since. So I just want to recognize her and just to show love on her, because I call her from time to time, and in February I called and it was the first time that she didn't pick up the phone. And, I was thinking like, hey, one of these days she's not going to be there to pick up the phone. Like, as a community, it's time that we show our gyms some love and give them their flowers while they can still smell it. Yeah. So the caravan is going to leave from Roxbury Street next Sunday, 5 o'clock sharp. Anybody can participate. If you would like to give Sarah Ann a note or a card, some cash, whatever, we'll have a bag or something hanging on her fence. So when we drive by her house, you could drop it in, but we're going to keep it moving. She will be sitting on her porch. Her daughter Claire is working with me on this one. I appreciate her. So that's going on next Sunday on the 25th. What do we have? Parenting While Black, May 8th. We might need to push it back, but for right now, it's May 8th. And I'm working on a mental health panel with teens. So right. Teens and mental health. So that's coming in May too. Oh, we have our weekly show on Saturdays. And all this can be viewed on DeeDee's Cry's Facebook page. Like I said, it's all free. You don't have to register. We're not trying to get your email address. Just go to Facebook and press play. So on Saturdays at 11 a.m., we have children's social and emotional support with Miss Crystal and Jimmy. And each week they just share education and strategies to teach parents how to support their child's social and emotional growth and development. I'm like, why do we have to wait? Most adult mental health issues stem from childhood traumas. So why aren't we teaching the parents now how to deal with their child's growth and development instead of waiting for there to be a problem?
Right.
So
wow, so a lot of good things going on. Yeah. So people can tune in on Saturdays for that. And instead, if you guys have any questions, just go to the website, DeeDee's Cry. and or you can email at DeeDee'sCry@yahoo, right?
Yes.
So guys, thank you guys so much for joining us today for Black Mental Health Matters. You can join me again next week at the same time, Sundays at 1 p.m. on 98.1 FM, The Urban Heat. So I will talk with you again next week. Have a
Thank
good
you
week.
so much for having me.
Bye.
And I understand the importance